878741. Hi. Hello, Namir sir. Good evening. Hello. Sir, can you hear me? Just one moment. Namir sir, കേൾക്കാമോ? Can you hear me, sir?
എനിക്ക് കേൾക്കാം.
Okay, great.
പക്ഷെ എനിക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ലല്ലോ. Okay, now better.
ഞാൻ വേറെ മറ്റേ ഇതിനകത്താ. I am on a different this thing.
ഇപ്പൊ കേൾക്കാമോ?
You can see my back.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you have, of course, the special background.
No, I need to change that because that is for afternoon. Now it's evening, so.
Wonderful. Very nice. So you become an expert now. Very nice.
When you're the teacher, you know.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm honored.
Yeah.
Okay, Shema is also here. Welcome, Shema.
Hi, Shema. Namir.
Shema is unmute. Okay, Shema, now please go ahead.
Sir, how are you?
Yeah, good. Nice meeting you. Yeah.
That engagement revolves around human resources. Today we have an interesting topic, which is birds and citizen science. Why and how to engage with nature. The guest for this evening session is Dr. Suhail Khadar, who is a senior scientist at Nature Conservation Foundation. He is also an ecologist who works on a variety of topics, from pure research to science, and also on educational and outreach materials about nature. His main interest is in engaging with the larger public to better understanding the natural world and how it is changing. His formal background and training is in the field of animal behavior and evolutionary ecology. So on behalf of NIPM Kerala chapter, it's a privilege to invite you to this Zoom chat show.
Thank you so much. So nice to be here.
Welcome. We have Dr. P.O. Namir to host the session. Dr. P.O. Namir is Professor of Wildlife Science with the Center for Wildlife Studies at Kerala Agricultural University. He has more than 25 years of experience as a teacher and a researcher. Dr. Namir is a passionate wildlife biologist. His basic training is in forest ecology and his PhD is on birds. He is the state coordinator of Asian Waterbird Census and Indian Bird Conservation Network. He is also an advisor to the Government of Kerala on different matters pertaining to environment, ecology, and wildlife. We welcome you too, sir, to this evening session. Thank you.
Suhail, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. I hope all of you can hear me. It's a
Yes, we
great pleasure to be with all of you over here, and thank you for sacrificing your Saturday evening to be over here in this Zoom chat. I'm going to try and share my screen. So just
Me, or is it Suhail?
Yeah. Yes.
Voice is a bit shaky. I think there's a connection piece. Could you want to check that?
How is it
No,
now?
I don't
It's,
feel
Suhail.
it is clear for me. Anish, it is clear
Okay.
for me.
Okay, please go ahead, Suhail. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll just try and share my screen. So hope you can see the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Dr. Namir and I thought is what we can do is have a bit of a conversation. So this presentation is divided into 5 sections. The benefits of nature to us humans and how birds are a window into the natural world. Some introduction to common birds around us, and then about bird watching and citizen science. And finally, what are some resources we can use to learn more about birds and nature. And the way that we thought we would do it is at the end of each of these sections, Dr. Namir and I could have a small conversation, or he could add some of his own thoughts so that, and there might be a small interaction between the two of us. And of course, at the end of the session as a whole, it'll be open for questions from others, or questions or comments. So that's how we thought it would be a little more interactive than just a half an hour talk straight by a single person. Yeah, so I hope that's fine. And so we'll start with the first section over here, how nature benefits us. And of course, we know that nature benefits us in very, many ways. We often don't think about it, but nature is the original infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, we tend to think about human infrastructure, which is things like roads and buildings and railways and so on. But of course, the human infrastructure is built upon the existing natural infrastructures, which is soil and rock and mountains and rivers and so on. And so that natural infrastructure is something I think that we need to have very clearly in the front of our minds when we talk about infrastructure for our own progress and development. This is a more common way of thinking about it. We think about natural resources. And of course, we use all of these resources from petroleum, which of course comes from dead trees many hundreds of million years ago, and water, forest, rocks, minerals, and so on. These are much more familiar to us. Some of the things that are not included here are also medications. Medicines, new medicines are often found in the natural world, especially for new diseases and so on. So natural resources, I don't have to tell you, are extremely important. But apart from these material benefits, I think also what's very important to recognize is that nature inspires us, and it inspires us in various creative fields and in art and culture generally. So whether it's poetry or song or anything like that, or in this case, art over here, we can see on the right side a pair of dancing saras cranes. And saras cranes in northern India are an integral part of culture, and therefore in art as well. You can see a miniature painting on the right from the Mughal period, which has a saras crane over there. Saras cranes are in folklore are well known for being faithful to each other, the male and female, till the end of their lives. And they stay in a single place and so on. So we draw inspiration from nature in very many different ways, and this is an important thing I think we need to keep in mind. More recently, there's a lot of research that shows that for children, spending time in nature benefits learning and cognition. So children who spend time in nature, who go on camps, who are taken out into nature, it's very interesting. They score higher on a number of different kinds of academic and cognitive tests than children who don't do that, children who are within the four walls. And it's very interesting to try and speculate about why it might be. One of the reasons might be because the diversity of nature and the intricate kind of connections and patterns that we see, it encourages children to look for patterns and connections and to understand those patterns and connections more than in other parts of their life. But in the last 20 years, there's increasing research showing these benefits for learning or of being in nature for learning. And again, more recently, maybe in the last 10 years or so, it's become very clear that spending time out in nature is of great benefit to our individual mental health. And there are many, many such testimonies and stories where people who have gone through severe either illness or physical illness or mental illness have documented how spending time in nature has helped them recover. Or even if people have not gone through a particular kind of illness, spending more and more time helps them cope with the stresses of modern life. So this is again something extremely important and becoming much more important now in our sort of the way in which we live our modern lives, alienated from nature. I think this is something that needs to be taken into account in the design of urban spaces and cities and so on. The need for all of us to be able to spend time in nature. So that's just a very quick first section. So Dr. Nameer, as promised, we are breaking here. Do you have any thoughts or responses or questions at this point? Would you like to add something?
Nothing for the moment, Sunil.
Okay.
It's fine. Unless, there are any questions from the other audience.
Yeah, any comments perhaps from others? Anish, is that okay to take?
Yeah, we can do that. If there's a question, I'm not getting anything on the chat yet. Just a request to request others who are not speaking to be on mute, or if they have a question, unmute and ask it now, or raise the hand so that I can see it, and then both physically as well as on the chat, which both I can see. So.
Okay, well, maybe I'll go ahead. If there are questions at any time, we can pause.
Yeah, yeah.
Questions, yeah.
So, let's do that.
So far we've spoken about nature in general. Nature, of course, has many, many different components. But I want to focus a little bit on birds in particular as a window into nature and the natural world. And one of the reasons why birds are so good as this kind of introduction and window to the natural world is that they're all around us. Just before the session started, I think Anish, in his home, there's a very loud call of koels in the background. And so the sounds of birds and the sight of birds are all around us, even in urban areas. Even the most urbanized places, we still find birds. So here's just a selection of some common birds around us. Many of you will recognize some of these birds. We will we'll talk about some of them in a little more detail later. But the famous Indian ornithologist Salim Ali, he wrote that it's almost impossible to imagine a square kilometer of land where there are no birds. Birds are everywhere, from the wildest, most remote places to the most sort of concrete jungles that we have today. So the fact that they're all around us is a really good opportunity for us to engage with nature through birds. They're also familiar, as we spoke about before, through story, art, and song. In mythology, as you know, in the Ramayana, Jatayu sacrificed himself to try and rescue Sita, and Jatayu is a vulture, and so it's one of those birds that are unfortunate enough that in India, in the Indian subcontinent, have declined very rapidly in the last 25, 30 years. But we can see here how the inspiration for the story comes from a real life creature like this majestic vulture that you see over here. Other inspirations, of course, perhaps this is the national bird. Of course, the peacock is a national bird, but in a sense, it's a national symbol. I think that if anybody anywhere in the world were to be asked, what bird do you associate India with, most likely they will mention peacock. Or conversely, if you show them a peacock and say, what country do you associate this bird with? Most likely they will say India. So the peacock is not just a national bird and a national symbol. In a sense, it's an ambassador for India to the outside world. And this is a beautiful set of paintings and carvings in the Peacock Gate in Jaipur. Birds are fascinating. I'm a biologist, and what fascinates me as a biologist is birds are fascinating in their diversity. So you see these birds in the middle of the sea, sitting on a floating thermocol, piece of scrap. You see a diversity in terms of size and color, in their behavior, in what they eat and what they do. There's a huge amount of fascinating learning that we can have from the diversity of birds. There are about 10,000 different kinds of varieties of birds across the world. And in India, there are about 1,300 of these varieties. So a great diversity of birds that we can wonder at and learn from. Bird behavior is fascinating. I have a special affinity towards bird behavior. Kshama had mentioned that my research has largely been on bird behavior. And this is one species that I did some research on for a few years. This is called the Baya weaver bird. And what's curious about this bird is that the male over here, I hope you can see my cursor, the male over here on the left in yellow is the one who builds the nest. And this is unusual among birds, because in birds, mostly the females build the nest, or both male and female together build the nest. But in this case, the male builds the nest. And the female over here is coming to inspect and see whether this nest is suitable enough for her to settle down over here and with this male and lay her eggs over here. So it's interesting, this diversity of the color. You can see the male and female are different color. They show this strange behavior. These are some of the things that are fascinating about birds. And so through this, birds are a window into the natural world, into all the world beneath. You can see beneath this falcon, there's forest, there's grassland, there's river. These are full of other kinds of creatures, mammals, insects, and so on. And the same kinds of principles that we understand about birds, about diversity, about their interactions, about what they eat and what eats them, these same principles apply in other aspects of the natural world as well. So for children and adults alike, starting with birds, it becomes a really wonderful introduction to the larger nature. So that's the end of the second section, just about how birds can be an introduction for all of us to nature as a whole and biodiversity as a whole. Again, I'll just pause for a few seconds in case anybody has any questions or comments on the previous two sections.
Suhail, if you can come a bit closer to the mic, maybe. I think that some participants messaged me that there's some feebleness in the voice.
Okay, is that a little better? I'll hold the mic up to my...
Yes, lot better, Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know that some of you who are on this chat are already bird watchers, ornithologists. So this next section will not be new to you, but I thought it would be useful just to show some nice photos of some of the common birds around us. We start with this bird, the house sparrow, which everybody has heard of. And there's a lot in the news in the last few years about how sparrows are declining, and there's lots of speculation. The favorite thing that I see around is because of mobile tower radiation. And what's quite interesting is that neither of these two statements or these thoughts has much evidence behind them. So sparrows actually are all over the country. They are not on the verge of extinction at all. Even though they are declining in our cities, some of the cities, they are actually all over rural India. So sparrows are not on the brink of extinction by any means. And also there is no evidence at all that mobile tower radiation is the cause of decline in cities. Many other birds are doing perfectly fine even with mobile towers around. So it's still a bit of a mystery why they are declining in cities. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly why. It's probably multiple reasons. But those of you who are a little older, about my generation or older, will know that in cities, certainly they used to be more common. And we really enjoyed them coming into our houses and building nests. So this is one of the familiar birds. Another, of course, familiar one is the crow. And many of us, when we talk about the crow, we don't realize that there are not just one, but multiple varieties of crows, multiple species as we call them. The common crow that most of us refer to is this one, which is not actually black. It's at least it's not all black. It has this very elegant gray neck over here. So it's got black wings and body, and then a black crown and throat, but its neck is gray. This is a house crow. There's another crow which may be familiar to some of you, and if we look closely, we can see the difference. This is called the large-billed crow, or sometimes called the jungle crow. And this is entirely jet black. So the immediate difference you can see is this difference in the neck color between these two kinds of crows. So those of you who have not yet tried to, have not yet known about this difference, please look at all the crows around you. Crows are fascinating creatures. Please don't dismiss them. Their behavior is wonderful. Their intelligence is wonderful. So do look and see that there are actually two kinds of crows around us, and see which one is the more common one around you. In my locality in Bangalore, oddly enough, it's this crow that's the most common, the large-billed or jungle crow. And when I see a house crow, I get very excited. Whereas for many of you in Kerala, most parts of Kerala, you will think I'm an idiot because the house crow is very, very common in most parts of Kerala. But this is the one that I get excited about. Similarly, we may know about a bird called the myna. And again, there are two common species. The common myna is by far the more common species. But if we look closely at this across the country, that is, we look closely, there's also a different kind of myna called the jungle myna. And look at how elegant and beautiful this jungle myna is. Not just the yellow beak, which it shares with the common myna, but look at the beautiful blue eye. And it doesn't have this yellow patch around the eye, unlike the common myna. It also has a little bit of a crest, some tuft of feathers in front of the beak. So this is how you can tell the two mynas apart, the common and jungle myna. Similarly, kites, depending on where you live, you may be more familiar with one or the other. In most parts of the country, the black kite is the common species, but in some parts, especially around coastal areas or rivers or large water bodies, the Brahmini kite is more common. And look at such a beautiful, elegant bird, the Brahmini kite. Some people mistakenly call it bald eagle. The bald eagle is a bird that's restricted to North America, and only its head is white. And the rest of the body is this sort of golden red color. So it's easy to confuse the two, but we don't have bald eagles in India. We have Brahmini kites and black kites. Bulbuls are another one that we know about. And you can see these are two common species of bulbuls. This one, the red whiskered, is called Sipahi in Hindi because it has a nice, like a helmet on its head. And it's got this tuft of red feathers on its cheek and then a white cheek over here. So red and white cheek and white underparts, and you can see that's different from the red-vented bulbul that doesn't have that tall tuft of feathers. It doesn't have the red and white cheek, and the underside is not white but rather brownish gray. These are, again, do look out for these. Both of these are likely to be seen in many parts of India where you live. This is a very interesting bird because of its behavior. This is a babbler. It's one of the different kinds of babblers called the jungle babbler. In English, it's called Seven Sisters, or in Hindi, Saat Bhai, and that's because we almost always see them in groups. And these are fascinating because they live in family groups. The children, when they grow up, they don't leave the parents, unlike most birds. They stay back with the parents, and they help their parents raise the next generation. So they'll stay back for 1 or more years, and they help the parents, feed the next generation and protect the next generation of chicks. So they're helping to raise their younger brothers and sisters at home. In some sense, like some human families as well, joint families, maybe we can call them. So these live in a joint family, and so very, very fascinating birds. If you see them, you should really check and see. Their behavior is wonderful. Some spectacular birds here. Look at this paradise flycatcher. This is a male. Look how he's showing off. He's showing off his white feathers, his long tail, and his blue eyes and his black head, also with the feathers sticking out at the top. This male is trying to attract a female. The female also have a black head, but they are brown, and they don't have the long tail. So the paradise flycatcher truly looks like it's a bird that's come visiting us from paradise. In southern India, these are mostly winter visitors. They come in the winter, although there are a few that stay back in the summer. And most of these birds go back in the summer to central and northern India to breed. This is one of my favorite birds. I already spoke about it. This is the Baya weaver. The male, he has collected the grass, and he's about to weave this grass, fresh grass, into his nest. The Indian roller is a bird some of us will be familiar with from open countryside. They sit on on wires in open areas around agriculture, sometimes called the farmer's friend because they help to control agricultural pests. A bird that's considered auspicious, and especially around Dasera time. Unfortunately, some people believe it's auspicious to release these birds. So there's an industry where people catch them, keep them in cages, and then at Dasera time they sell them, and then people release them and believe that it's auspicious. But actually, in the process, many birds die because they don't feed in captivity, they're not kept properly. So unfortunately, the fact that this is auspicious is something of a handicap for these species. Cattle egret, they are wonderful birds. They follow cow. They're called cattle egret because they follow cows around, and elephants in the forest, and bison, gaur, and so on. And they feed on the insects that get disturbed from the hooves of the cattle. So next time you see a herd of cattle in an open area, please look and see whether you see these white birds following them around, sometimes perched on their backs, getting a free ride. This bird we'll come back to later. You would not have noticed it. It's a tiny bird called the blight-singed warbler. It comes to us from Eurasia, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later. The koel, I'll just very quickly, well known because it's called a brood parasite. These birds don't build their own nests. This is a male on the left and a female on the right. They don't and can't build their own nests. Instead, they lay their eggs in the nests of other birds, particularly crows. And then the crows raise the young ones of the koels as their own. And in this way, the koels, they fool the crows into raising their own young alongside the young ones of the crows. And again, I've done some research on these birds, and I could talk for hours about them. But all of you know, and you know the sound of these birds. They're very, very common. Also in song and art, people recognize them and know about their habit, their mischievous habit of laying eggs in other birds' nests. I think this is the last one in this series. These are sunbirds. Sometimes we mistakenly call them hummingbirds. Hummingbirds, again, are restricted to North and South America. And this is called an ecological equivalent of the hummingbird. Just like hummingbirds in the Americas feed on nectar of flowers, in the old world, that is in Asia and in Africa, we have sunbirds that have these curved beaks, also used for probing nectar in flowers. And this is a male purple sunbird and a female here on the right side. So again, this is the end of the third section. Again, I'll just pause for a couple of seconds, see if somebody has something to say or if they've seen any of these species or any other questions.
No questions on the chat yet.
Yeah, I have a question.
I think we can move on. Yeah, go ahead, Rajesh.
Yeah, is there any authenticated evidence for eradication of birds due to mobile tower radiation? It's a myth or it's a reality?
So as far as I know, and I haven't done any research on it directly, but I've read reports and articles on this. I think there were some initial alarms raised in the late 90s, early 2000s about this. And there were some lab studies also done. But despite a lot of work on it, my best understanding it is that is a myth, that there isn't actually any evidence that mobile tower radiation affects birds in any way. This is, of course, like in all sciences, a tentative conclusion. And perhaps if the radiation is in some places is stronger, there may be an effect. But it's definitely not a major effect, because if it was a major effect, there are urban birds that are thriving, which are similar to house sparrows or smaller size, even prinias, bulbuls, and so on. They're all over the place, and it would be very odd if only sparrows and not other species were being affected by radiation. Radiation, as you know, is a generic effect on biological tissues. It's not something like a very specific toxin. So we would expect radiation to be affecting all kinds of different wildlife and birds, which we don't see. So the best understanding these days is that it is not an issue for urban wildlife and birds. Dr. Nameer, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, well, I just want to endorse what Suhail has said. There is no concrete evidence to say that mobile towers have been disadvantages to birds in general and house sparrow in particular. So yeah, I just want to endorse your views.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I guess we'll move on. So having looked at some of the common birds, one hobby that is already very popular, becoming more popular across the world and in India is watching birds. And we already talked about, the benefits of being out in nature, and bird watching is one way in which we would come out, get out of our four walls and into nature. So we'll talk about the hobby of bird watching, but also how in the last 10-15 years, it's also contributed to scientific studies about birds. So what do bird watchers do? They go out of their houses and they watch birds. Here is again the Saris crane. This is a photo taken in Madhya Pradesh near Indore. So bird watchers watch birds. They in earlier days they used to write notes. Nowadays that's become a little less prevalent, but basically bird watchers make a note also typically of what they have seen and when they have seen it and where they've seen it and so on. And here is an example of a list that a birdwatcher has made. So all these are different species of birds that this person has seen at a particular place in Karnataka, in northern Karnataka. And this is on an online portal, which we'll talk about a little later. And he's also uploaded a few photographs to accompany his list. So this is typically what a birdwatcher would do. Go bird watching, go to a particular place, look at all the birds around, make a note of what they are, and upload it to an online portal. And we have been working with this platform called eBird, and we run the portal for India, which is called eBird India. And by we, I mean a group of informal group of institutions and e-groups and NGOs on the ground. And we call this umbrella group BirdCount India. And what's interesting in the last 6 years that we've been working with birdwatchers through BirdCount India is if you look here, every point of light, every point of yellow refers to a place where a list of birds has been uploaded by a birdwatcher over the last 6 years. It covers not only the last 6 years, but also the years before that, because people have gone back to their old notebooks and have uploaded their sightings from there. And you can see a huge amount of information has been uploaded, more than 15 million observations from different parts of India. And I know most of you are in Kerala, and you will know if you look down here at Kerala, that Kerala is, despite it being a small state, is the most active state in terms of bird watching and uploading bird observations onto this platform. And southern India generally is very active, and of course as you go in some other places there's less activity, but nevertheless there's a lot of information available from different parts of India, huge amount of information. And so this is the citizen science part of it. From this information, it's really interesting. I won't go in detail into this slide, but we can calculate what are the most common species in different parts of the countries. What are the most abundant birds in different parts of the country? And if you take these arbitrary 4 regions of the country, you find that the common myna that we spoke about earlier, the one with the yellow patch around the eye, that is the one that's the most common in all 4 different parts of the country. So if somebody were to ask what is the most common species in India of bird, then earlier we only had guesses, but now we actually have some basis on which to say, this is the most common, that's the next common, this is the rarest species, and so on, based on the information uploaded by people who are carrying out their hobby of bird watching. We also have a much better idea about where these birds are. These are 3 species that I have not talked about, 3 varieties of birds, but they're all restricted in some sense to the Western Ghats. And we can see that this species, the white-cheeked barbet, is most widespread in the western, southwest India. Malabar parakeet is more restricted to the mountains, and this hornbill is restricted even more to the montane parts, even though it extends into central India, where I have not shown the map. So we can get a really good idea about where these birds are from the observations of bird watchers. I want to show you something about migration also. We spoke about this little warbler, very boring brown bird. But this shows a fascinating migration, and this migration has been clarified now through through the information contributed by birdwatchers. So you can see in the winter time, this bird congregates within India alone. There are birdwatchers all over the place, but this bird is reported from India. So the entire global population of this bird in the winter is found in the Indian subcontinent, so India and its neighboring countries. And in the summertime, you can see it breeds all across Eurasia, from the western part of Europe all across to Central Asia and beyond. So again, let's just follow the cycle. This is the first time that we've been able to track the migration of a bird in Asia across its entire distribution. So you see how in the summer, again, they spread out through the vast areas unoccupied where there are no people in central Russia and so on. And then they filter down and get trapped, in a sense, in our Indian subcontinent. So it's amazing information that has been contributed purely through the efforts of bird watchers. So we understand the migration of this and many other species much better than we did before. I want to just very briefly talk about a very recent effort by a number of institutions to understand India's birds more deeply, especially the conservation aspects. What is the conservation state of India's birds? And this again from citizen science information contributed by birdwatchers. I'll just give you two examples. One is of the peacock. And we spoke earlier about the peacock. And here, this is a map of the distribution of the peacock as contributed by birdwatchers. And you can see that over time, in the last 25 years, peacocks have more than doubled in their abundance. So our national bird is doing very well. It shows a very strong increase in the long term. Even currently, it's showing an increase. Its range is very large. And from a conservation perspective, it's not of very critical conservation concern. So it's of low conservation concern. This is information that we had no idea about before now. A lot of people would have told you, if you ask them, yes, peacocks are increasing across the country, but there would have been no actual evidence and no hard numbers. So now we have this. And again, those of you in Kerala may know, and Dr. Namir is in fact has published a paper, information on this, that in Kerala, peafowl have been increasing in the last 20-25 years dramatically. And he can tell you more about that. Another bird we talked about earlier, I said to you earlier that house sparrows are declining in the metro cities, but overall they are stable. I just gave that to you as a verbal description, but here is the evidence behind that statement. Again, using the information from all across the country contributed by birdwatchers, we can actually calculate the abundance of house sparrows and show that they're declining in metros. But even though that's happening, overall they are stable. So they are stable long-term, they're stable currently, their range is very large. And so their conservation concern is actually quite low. If you see newspaper headlines saying house sparrow is on the verge of extinction, you know that is not true. Even though even now, after this report is being published, still people are talking about this, and it's not the case. So these are some examples of how citizens, birdwatchers combine their hobby with citizen science and can lead to very clear and concrete, scientific and conservation outcomes. At this point, I thought we'll hand over to Dr. Namir, who will say a little bit more about some efforts, particularly in Kerala, engaging birdwatchers in a very interesting project. So Namir, is that okay? I'll end my screen share and then you can share your screen.
Okay, Suhail, thank you. Anish? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I share my screen?
Please go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Yes, please. Suhail has stopped sharing. We can, yes, sir. Please go ahead. You can make it into the, yeah.
You can see that?
You're on. Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, okay. Okay, so thank you, Suhail, for that wonderful introduction. I'll start from where you have stopped. You stopped at the importance of the citizen science. And thanks to citizen science concept and the support of the people, we have been able to launch this project called the Kerala Bird Atlas Project, which was launched in 2015. And it's been a very ambitious project that we have been working on the last 5 years. And right now we are at the final stage. And I'll talk briefly about this project. Suhail is a very strong supporter of this project, though we are implementing it in Kerala. We get an excellent support from people like Suhail, and also from people like Anish, who has been not only supporting in getting a lot of people to participate in this program, also in leading many of the surveys, and people like Prem and I don't know who others are there. Prem is also a very strong supporter and leader of such a project. So I will talk briefly about that. First, Atlas, as you all know, it's a map showing the cities, states, and countries. And Bird Atlas means map of distribution of birds in a city or a district or a state or a country. So that's the bird atlas. And if you look at the history of atlases, you know, one of the first biodiversity atlas was published in 1962, which was an atlas of British flora about the plants of the Britain. And the first bird atlas was published in 1970 when it was an atlas of breeding birds of West Midlands. And you know, similarly, by 2019, a large number of atlases have been brought out from across the globe. Now, why we should be making a bird atlas? Because you know, birds are already being monitored, and we would like to have a better understanding about the birds. That's why, you know, we need this bird atlas, and through that we'll be able to assess the changes in the distribution and abundance of the birds, and assess the importance of urban green spaces where, you know, birds are seen, and you know, our conservation prioritization can be focused on such areas. Again, you know, identifying key sites for conservation of birds and predicting the impacts of human activities on local species distribution, including the impact of climate change, for example, you know, how it's going to impact the distribution of birds. So all, you know, such information can be gathered for which help in the conservation planning of the species through this project. That's a project from, as I said, it was started in 2015, and it's a 5-year project. It is to end this year. So it's basically a citizen science initiative to map the distribution and abundance of our birds in a systematic way. So when I say, you know, in a systematic way, you know, I'll briefly explain the methodology, then it will be clear to you as to, you know, how systematically we have been documenting this birds as part of this bird atlas project. So the whole of Kerala is divided into different grids having size of, you know, 6.6 by 6.6 kilometers, which is further divided into 4 quadrants having size of 3.3 by 3.3 kilometers, which in turn is divided into 9 subgrids of subcells of 1.1 by 1.1 square kilometer. Now, from each of these 4 quadrants, 4 subcells have been randomly chosen, and you know, the birds are documented, monitored in these subcells in 2 seasons, in the wet season as well as dry season. What we call as wet season is from July to September, and what we call as dry season is from January to March. So it's sampled twice a year. That's how it's being done. And the status of bird atlas as of now, as can be seen from here, it's been completed in different districts like Alappuzha, Kasaragod, Kottayam, Kozhikode, Kannur, Thrissur. It's completed, and other districts, it's the work is going on. So this is the status as on 15th of January 2020, where the wet season we have covered 82.6% of the whole of Kerala, and the dry season it is 81.98. So that was as on 15 Jan. Last month we finished March we finished the dry season. Now we stand at about 95%. So it's a remarkable achievement we have been able to make. And 15 September we intend to complete the wet season, where again we hope to complete close to 100% of the all the pending lists. So we are able to achieve considerably thanks to the support of the citizen, because as I said, this is one of the largest bird atlas project of the Asian region. We cover close to 3,500 locations, which is close to 10% of the whole of state. The total area of the state is about 38,000 plus square kilometers, and we got about 30,000 samples, 7,500 field hours, 0.3 million records. That's kind of input that people have contributed, and more than 1,000 people from across the state from different walks of life, right from students to professionals to, you name, it's a complete cross-section of the state of Kerala have been contributing to this project, and it's been an amazing experience to be a part of this wonderful project. Well, I said this started in 2015, and by first year itself, we are able to complete 2 districts. That is the district of Alleppey and Thrissur. These 2 districts, we brought out the district level atlas reports, and 2017 we brought out the Kannur report. So, likewise, we have been able to bring the reports over different districts. Okay, now I will just tell you some of the highlights of or sample outputs of the survey. So this is one of the common birds. Suhail has introduced the jungle babbler. So this is another babbler that is common around our habitations. It's called the yellow-billed babbler. So here, what you see in this green map is the distribution of the species as per the some of the more recent field guides, as per which both the jungle as well as yellow-billed babbler is seen throughout Kerala. Whereas our atlas survey result indicate that it is not uniformly common across Kerala. For example, the jungle babbler is seen or has a greater congregation in southern Kerala, just north of. So this is Kottayam, Pathanamthitta region. And it's mostly lacking in the central Kerala and southern Kerala, and then it's appearing again in northern Kerala near Kozhikode and Kannur region. So it's not uniformly distributed throughout the state, as is being shown in this some of the most recent field guides on the birds. So, likewise, if you look at the yellow-billed babbler, this one, its distribution is also patchy, which is not so as is being given in some of the recent or latest field guides. So, these are kind of an additional information that we have been able to gather as part of Atlas. Similarly, there are several such examples. White-cheeked barbet, it's a species, it's a resident bird, which means it's supposed to seen around the year, but then you can see the difference in the dry season and the wet season densities. The dry season, it is more denser when compared to the wet season, where it is less denser. And the quail, again another species that was mentioned by Suhail, is also considered as a resident species. But it's again in the wet season, its number or density is fewer when compared to them in the dry season. So such kind of finer information we have been able to gather thanks to the Bird Atlas project. Okay, this is another classical example of a long distance migrant species. Long distance migrants come to Kerala mainly during the season from September to April. So they come by September and they go back by April. So you can see here that the species has been completely lacking or absent from Kerala during the wet season. So, and it's seen only during the dry season, that is a migratory season. So, we knew this, but now we have concrete evidences in terms of data specifically to specific regions within Kerala, as where they're coming and how many of them are coming, and their absence during some of the season. We have clear evidence thanks to the Bird Atlas project. Let's have a back again, another example. I'm not going into the details. Okay, another thing that we have been able to produce thanks to the Bird Atlas project as an outcome of the Bird Atlas effort. We have been able to document the birds in all the 900 plus panchayats, corporations, and municipalities across Kerala. So this is an example of the kind of data that is available for one of the corporation. And similar information is available for all the 900 plus local self-government bodies, which is an enormous outcome. Which I don't think any other state has that kind of information at such fine scale. So, for example, it shows how many species are there, what is the number of observations, how many checklists, out of the 237 species, how many of them are migrants, and which are the 10 common birds of that particular, in this case, Trivandrum Corporation, which are the 10 common birds, and how they are distributed across the months. Okay, so from January to December, how they are distributed, and what is the change in their abundance across the months. So all such kinds of finer details we have been able to collect thanks to this project. And the threatened species, we have given a list of 13 species which are threatened with, as per IUCN categories. They're threatened. We such an information was not available. There were 257 participants who did birding in the Trivandrum Corporation, and we have given the names of all the 257 participants here. So that's an important outcome of Bird Atlas project, though it was not meant for that. But since we did have that data, we produced this output. And similarly for some of the other corporations and Gram Panchayats for which we have made such poster. Okay, Suhail did speak about state of India's birds report, which was brought out early this year. I would like to add one point here is that the methodology used for the state of India bird has been calibrated using the data from Kerala Bird Atlas, which I would say is a substantial achievement, and it's I would say it's a point to cherish for all the contributors of the Kerala Bird Atlas, because we have been able to contribute to such a huge project at the national level. And the bird of State of India's bird report, it has prioritized the species of conservation concern for different states, including Kerala. So which are the species that are of conservation concern is being given, and it would definitely help the decision makers, the policy makers in prioritizing the conservation of our avian friends. Well, these are some of the output that we propose to make as part of the Bird Atlas project. One is the distribution map for close to 200 species of birds. Then distribution map for different groups of birds, like wetland birds, village birds, forest birds, etc. Species trend maps, the projected population trend for the 25 to 50 species during the next between 10 to 25 years, how the species trend are going to be for selected species of birds. This is something else that we propose to. So likewise, we are the proposed outcome of the project, Bird Atlas project, is like that. Okay, I just conclude by saying that citizen science is normally do science with the help of citizens, but we believe citizen science is to enable citizens to do science. That's what we've been trying to do with the support of our incredible birding community across the state. And these are our collaborators in this Bird Atlas project. We get excellent support from Kerala State Forest Department in terms of permit as well as logistics. We get technical support from eBird India, and the other NGOs include Kerala Birder, Malabar Natural History Society, Kottayam, Cochin, Alappuzha Natural History Societies, Hume Center, WWF, Ude, the Call Birders, Kasagod Birders, Wayanad Birders, Kollam Birding Battalion, Pathanthita Birders, Malappuram Birders, Young Bird Club, Kudu Birders, the Nature Conservation Foundation, and Bird Count India, to which Suhail belongs, and my own university, the Kerala University. So these are the collaborators in the project. Yeah, thank you. Anish. Anish?
Yeah, I think, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Shema, can you see those questions? You had a question. Do you want to ask it now, Shema?
One second. One question is for this hot season, how we can provide food and water for these birds.
It's not clear.
Audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, but the question was not clear, Shema. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, for this hot season, how we can provide food and water for the
Can you
birds.
repeat the question, Shema?
For this hot season, how we can provide food and water.
Okay, let me repeat that for Suhail and others. For the hot season, summer, how can we provide food and water to birds?
Want to start first, Suhail?
So, in general, birds don't need food provided, but water can be a limiting factor in many cases. So, just a shallow, some kind of shallow bowl where, some pottery kind of bowl or something raised at a slight height, kept near some bushes. That's a good way to provide water, and birds will not only drink that water, but they'll also bathe in that water. So providing water, I think, is a reasonable thing. Food in general, we don't need to provide. I don't think food is such a limiting thing in our country in most seasons. Anish, Namir, are you?
Yeah, there was another question from Shama about the increase in the number of pigeons that she's seeing in some parts. Is there any rationale, or how would you all explain that? The rock pigeon is what she's referring to, I believe.
Is that a question for me or for
Yeah, you can supplement.
Okay, so nobody has studied it, but it seems sensible that there are two reasons for the increase of rock pigeons. One is that their habitat has increased because there's many more buildings, especially high-rise buildings. And rock pigeons, their natural habitat is cliffs, and our buildings are very much like cliffs. So they find it very convenient to nest in the ledges and so on of our buildings. And the second reason is that people are increasingly feeding them. And in fact, just today, there was an article published about how in Mumbai, there's a bit of a movement to prevent that, to stop people from feeding pigeons. So I think it's the increase in the food as well as the increase in the habitat that is resulted in the great increase in pigeons in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suhail. Digvijay has a question. I believe he's raised his hand. So please go ahead, Digvijay. Great to have you here.
Sir, good evening and very good evening to every participant. My question is, sir, with respect to the crows. The crow menace is increasingly phenomenally in the area. And another particular experience which I have seen at times when I'm out for birding in our locality, they follow and keep crowing around you. So how to go about it?
which is your locality? Where are you in the country?
Sir, I'm at Kochi and staying at Thevra Katari Bagh.
Okay. So I think Kerala crows require an answer from Dr. Nameer. So I'll leave it to him.
Definitely, Sahil. Digvijay, good question. What I would say is that it has something to do with our poor management of waste, particularly in Kochi. And that's true not only just in Cochin, but throughout Kerala, it's true. Wherever we don't have a proper system of management of our waste. We are just dumping our waste at our convenience. So definitely that is one of the reasons of the increase in the population of crows particularly in our cities. So, and crows are basically scavengers and opportunity feeders. So whenever they have a lot of food at their disposal, they tend to congregate. So yeah, so I would say that would be the reason for the increase in the population of crows in our cities, particularly a place like Cochin.
Sir, if I may ask a second part, my particular experience is that whenever I'm in the local around birding, the crows will hang around on your head. It will make you forced go away. Either the bird is gone or you're forced to go away. Is my everyday experience in this area. Is there anything to it, sir?
Okay. Did you ever try to disturb a crow?
No, sir, not at all, sir. In fact, we have got a big yard, so we definitely do feed them also at times.
Okay. I mean, there are reports, particularly if you, you can't read Malayalam, otherwise, I would recommend you to read Professor Neelakantan's classic on Kerala.
Yes, sir, heard of it.
The Urinsa has explained in great detail about the crow behavior. So they have a tendency of mobbing people. Not all, but some of them do have that habit of Okay, so my power may go now. I have a problem.
You have a problem. Okay, so Vivek Achari has a question. I'm not able to kind of
sorry, Anish,
decipher it. So,
if you don't mind, there's just a short section left.
Yes.
Finish because that's about.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
More about birds and nature. Just maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can
definitely
open.
Please go ahead.
Is that okay? Yeah. So then
sure.
Just share my screen once more. This is just the last section. Hopefully you can all see.
Yeah, we can see.
So in this, I'll just focus. There's lots of resources to learn about birds and nature. I'm just going to focus on some of the resources that I've been involved in and some of the work that I've been involved in. So one of these efforts is something called Early Bird, early-bird.in, and there are a number of games and resources also in multiple languages available on the earlybird.in website. Some of them are for free download. A lot is there for free download. There are other things you can purchase for if you want physical copies and so on. So this is an example of a game, this bingo game, which children seem to love. You just take them outside, give them this thing and say, okay, now tick off as many as you can see. And if you get all in a row and a column, then you can call bingo. We have these posters that can be purchased, but also are available for download. You can download the print resolution files and print them yourselves if you want. There I'm showing you the English version, but there are I think in 3 or 4 different languages right now. So if you look at the website, and these are some of the common species you can see around. More recently, we've launched these interactive posters. So again, from the website, if you see, you can open some of these posters and you can click on any one of the species, and then it opens a little box. And there you can see a little more detail about the species, and you can also play the sound that that bird makes. These things work very well on mobile as well, and they're very good for children because children like to have some interactivity and like to hear things and so on. So please do. They're also available in multiple languages. Then the drop down, you can select one of 8 or so languages for the text over here. We also have on the Bird Count India website, we have a PowerPoint presentation that you can download and go through as an introduction to birds and bird watching. This is for you to learn from, or you can even use it to introduce others to bird watching. By the way, all these links I can send to Anish, and maybe he can pass it on to you, so you don't have to note them down at the moment. The BirdCon India website also has a series of posts on getting starting with birding. And there's a whole series starting from why do we watch, what do I need to watch birds, how do I identify birds, what are some of the common birds, and so on. And so on our website, we have resources for people to get started with birding. These are all in English only, unfortunately. Nowadays, in the olden days, we used to use field guides, and Dr. Namir showed some maps from printed field guides. Now, of course, books are unknown to young people, it seems, and we need an app. And so the app that I would recommend to learn about Indian birds is called Merlin. And either on the for iOS or Android, you just go to the store and search for Merlin from Cornell Lab, and you can download it. You also have to download an India pack, which is quite large, but includes all species. You can also, if you're in Southern India, you can download a Southern India pack instead of the All India pack. And what happens then when you do that is you can explore all the birds. So this is the All India pack. It covers 1,200 species of Indian birds. And I can browse through all the birds. I can click on one of the species. I can get a series of photographs. I can see what they sound like. I can get a map of their distribution. And one very nice feature in Merlin is I can explore to see what are the common birds around me. So if you're in Cochin, in Ernakulam today, because it varies seasonally, I can choose Ernakulam, Kerala today, and I can see what are the common species around. And this information is derived from the reports uploaded by bird watchers. So the most common species that you can expect to see on this date, today's date, in Ernakulam, Kerala, is house crow, rock pigeon, koel, Brahmani kite, magpie robin, common myna, white-cheeked barbet. And the list goes on. You can scroll down and see. Many of these species we've already spoken about in this presentation. And that contrasts with if you're in Delhi. In Delhi, you wouldn't expect to get the same kind of species. Some of them are common. For example, common myna you expect is among the most common species you expect to see in Kerala, in Delhi. House crow also. But beyond that, things have changed. So you expect to see rose-ring parakeet. Rock pigeon also is very common both places, but black kite is more common here than Brahmani kite, red-vented bulbul, and instead of white-cheeked barbet, which is restricted to southern India and the Western Ghats, we expect to see brown-headed barbet. So if you are starting out with birds and you've got some birds around you, you want to identify them, you just tell Merlin where you are and what's the date that you care about, and it'll suggest to you what are the most common species, and you can compare that against what you see around you, and you can try and identify the birds. So Merlin is very, very useful in that respect. Just to broaden it out to nature as a whole, some other things my colleagues are doing are to look at other aspects of nature, not just birds, but insects, trees, clouds, spiders, reptiles, and so on. So just a few other links that I'll pass on to you through Anish, and you can explore, especially of children. These are, I think, quite useful to keep children interested and occupied, get them interested in nature. By the way, geckos are all around in all our houses. They are also wild animals. And they are wild animals that share our house with us. So please do look for geckos. Don't harm them. They don't. Then I'll send the link to you. You can download and use them with your children. We have another citizen science project called Season Watch, where everybody is invited to monitor the trees outside their houses to see when they are fruiting and flowering. So this is a citizen science project, especially with children in schools, but also with families, to observe many, many trees and see at what season they're flowering and fruiting and when the leaves come out. So there's another opportunity to engage in citizen science, not only with birds. So thanks to all of you for your attention. My email address is down here in case you want to get in touch. And again, I'll be sending those links to you through Anish. So if you want to take forward any interest in nature and bird watching. Thanks to all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suhail. I would let people raise their hands on the either on the video or on the chat so that I know that you have a question. Let me repeat a question that Vivek has given me. This is to maybe Namir sir. So, if a particular bird's number or it goes up for any reason, is there a threat, or is it because is there some relationship to the biological diversity? What does it mean? Is it a problem? Are there something of that sort, of such a phenomenon happening in Kerala?
Okay. Well, I would say that, say species like pigeon that Shama has mentioned. For in the case of rock pigeon, the population is increasing, and one of the reason for the decline in sparrows from the metros is the sparrow habitat, as well as the extra food grains for the sparrows has been there was stiff competition from pigeons. So that way, pigeon has a role in declining the population of sparrows, at least in some places. So the pigeon is one species whose population has increased substantially. And another bird that comes to my mind is that of the crow, whose population, particularly in the metros, the population has increased substantially. Other than that, no other species that comes to my mind. Suhail, is there anything that comes to your mind whose population has increased substantially?
No, I can't think of. There are other species that have increased a lot across the country. In the state of India's birds, we hadn't looked specifically at Kerala, although that can be done and should be done. There are some other species that are very common garden birds, like for example the Ashiprinia, which is a small bird with a long tail that's found in many gardens. And as urban areas and gardens are expanding, that bird also seems to be expanding. But by and large, we don't consider, just to address the original question, I don't think we consider many of these things a problem unless they impact other biodiversity negatively. So for example, if pigeons are impacting sparrows negatively, then we might have a problem. Or if crows are well-known predators of the eggs and the young ones of many other birds. So an increase in the number of crows could be a problem for other urban, other birds and wildlife, although this has not been carefully studied. So we do need to keep track of increases. Normally we like increases, but in some cases, increases may actually cause a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was hoping to get a question or a thought from Prasadam George sir and even Girish sir. Girish sir has been very, I would say, ardently listening to this, and I've been talking to him about what I've been doing with birding. So I would like to take your views, sir, and what do you feel about all these things? Okay, let me unmute you. Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Anish.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. We can hear you, sir.
Huh?
We can hear you now, sir.
Yeah. So actually, thank you very much for opening us to this new world. See, I was just recollecting, I know only one or two birds. The crow or pigeon. I think it was very nice, and especially the input given for children. I would like to take that link, and my wife will definitely induce that to children.
Yeah.
Definitely, post lockdown, when we go out, at least we will start looking at birds. That is the contribution on me by this session. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Shama, do you have any questions? I'm not sure if Prasadam George is here. I think he must have logged off, or I think he's having trouble connecting. Does anyone else? If you do not have a question, then I'll wait for about 10 seconds, and then Ajesh, do you want to give some closing remarks before we wind up?
And tomorrow's program also, you say?
Yeah. So tomorrow.
Yeah. Please announce that. This session was very good, very informative. Thank you, Namir sir and Suhail. And hope Anish will share those links to us, so we can use.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Let me share my screen before so that we can get to see the program for tomorrow. Okay, let's see this.
Anish, all of us should formally thank both Suhail and Namir, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely. I'll get to do that for a moment. Yeah. So this is the program for tomorrow. Can you see this? We have Srilal and Saji chatting about very say important critical act that concerns workplace, understanding practical aspect of prevention of sexual harassment against women. This is going to be hosted by our senior member, Dr. Jaya Jacob Alexander, who's the CEO of the Geojit Foundation now. So this is going to happen at 6:30 p.m. So just wanted to announce that. And before one second. Yeah, so the thought of getting Namir sir and Suhail was more to get HR fraternity aware of the different types of hobbies that their employees can take up, and and spread that awareness to their communities. That because these are HR members are very vocal within their networks, and they can actually get into. They also manage CSR and other aspects as well in large companies. So the thought was to introduce through NIPM Kerala, which is the premier body of HR professionals in the country. The Kerala chapters of the 7th in the list of chapters, in the list 7th chapter in the list of 54 chapters, which was founded. And we've been around from 1961 in Kerala. And so we thought we'll be able to get our members connected to this concept. And we are very lucky to have both Suhail and Namir sir combining on this, because Suhail actually explained what this whole thing is about, and Namir sir showed us the result of an actual thing, and how we might all think that it is just about birding and writing something down or putting up on the internet. But the amount and the way it has gone, and the interesting part I want to bring into HR people is that the way this group used technology is just amazing. The Merlin app that you saw is kind of a real machine learning and AI information data. I mean, it's a classic case of use. And this is a group which persuaded people like me to download a data analytical tool, platform named R, the software. And I have been playing around with some of these data myself. And that, in fact, I would recommend that to HR people as well for HR analytics use. So it's all came in through this passion or interest in birding. Our own member, Prasad sir, is also a very, very ardent birder. And our additional secretary is not here today, but Agustin sir also happened to be of great help to me when I'm moving around and getting sure that we have birding opportunities to all. So with that, once again, let me thank Suhail and Namir sir. You've really simplified the whole concept to us. Shema for making sure that we're all engaged and with those questions. Thank you for everyone who attended. Very great, very, very good participation. I've been going through all the questions and getting in. So I'll share those details and look forward to you all taking this forward. Thanks once again, sir, and you all have a great evening ahead. See you, some of you all, tomorrow for the next session of the webinar series.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Suhail and Namir sir, once again.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.